John, I wanted to move on to defence and intelligence. You have a long career in the intelligence community, obviously. I wonder, just looking here regionally in Australia, around this part of the world, I mean, how is the Australian intelligence community looked at by the US? Are they seen as a key partner,
Oh,
a key strategic partner?
yeah, absolutely key. Absolutely key partner. Australia, of course, is part of Five Eyes, just like the United States is, along with the UK, Canada, and New Zealand. And, I remember just after 9/11 when Five Eyes was first floated, the idea of the Five Eyes Alliance was first floated. George Tenet was the CIA director at the time, and he told us in an all hands email, an email sent to every CIA officer, explaining what this alliance would look like. He said that we would be sitting side by side with our allies, and that they would have access to literally everything they were doing. And many of us laughed at that, like, well, that's not possible. And in fact, no, that's exactly what happened. It got to the point where we had, MI6 and MI5 officers sitting at headquarters. NSA had GCHQ people. We had Australians. I don't recall a New Zealander, but there may have been a New Zealander in the Counterterrorism Center where I was assigned. But they meant that we would all have access to each other's information, and everybody literally opened the books. It was really historic.
Australia has, just like the US, in fact, the US has so many different intelligence agencies. Australia has a number
Yeah.
of them too. Most people here would think of the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, or ASIO, but I would imagine the people that you probably dealt with more, I suppose, would be ASIS, the Australian Security Intelligence Service, which is more an external agency.
Yes,
Would that be
that's
a
right.
fair assumption?
Yes. Yeah, for SEO, it would have been the FBI. That would be their normal partner. And which is kind of funny because until 9/11, there were no FBI agents in our building, and there were no CIA people at the FBI. We were completely stovepiped.
Well, that's an interesting one too. Let's have a look at that one. So I've heard you talk in very long form on these other podcasts, John, about the warring tribes between CIA and FBI, and it's probably the same here in these parts of the world. Why does that exist? I mean, aren't we all playing on the same side, or are we playing on the same side?
Oh, sure, we are. The CIA and the FBI, and I'm told, I've been out for a long time, so I'm told this has finally changed, or it's in the process of changing. But until after 9/11, the CIA and the FBI hated each other to the point where they just would not cooperate with one another. Starting in 1947, with passage of the National Security Act of 1947, which created the CIA. Well, I can tell you exactly how it started. When the National Security Act of 1947 was being considered in Congress, J. Edgar Hoover, who was the very long time director of the FBI, he was director for 48 years, he announced his opposition to the passage of this bill. Now, the bill created the CIA, created the National Security Council. So it was a major change in U.S. intelligence policy. So President Truman, in order to get J. Edgar Hoover's support for the bill, lied to him and told him, no, you're wrong about this bill. It's going to create this thing called the CIA, but the CIA is going to be a division of the FBI. And he said, oh, okay, so I'll be the head of the FBI and of the CIA. Okay, I relinquish my my opposition. And that was a lie. And so the bill passed, the president signed it into law, and the CIA was created, and General William Donovan became the first director of the CIA. Well, that same year, 1947, Hoover ordered the FBI to refuse any and all cooperation with the CIA. And only when we really, truly had to cooperate with each other did we even, talk to one another. In all the years I was in the CIA, not one single time did I ever go to the FBI. Never. I mean,
Hmm.
I had more interaction with, the Egyptian intelligence service than I ever had with the FBI.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot was made over 9/11 about intelligence breakdowns and what information each particular agency may or may not have had that they may or
That's
may
right.
not have shared.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. 9/11 happened because the CIA and the FBI refused to cooperate with one another. And then even after 9/11, I tell this story in my first book, and I've told it in podcasts too. The night that we captured Abu Zubaydah in Faisalabad, Pakistan, we also confiscated his cell phone. And one of my FBI colleagues threw it in an evidence bag and sealed it and wrote her name on it. And as soon as she threw it in this evidence bag and sealed it, it started to ring. So I picked up the bag and she said, "Stop, don't open that bag." I said, "Jennifer, are you crazy? It's ringing. It could be bin Laden on the phone, for God's sake, calling to ask if it was true that we had gotten him." And she said, "Don't open the bag." I said, "I'm going to open the bag and I'm going to answer the phone so that NSA can pick up the call," because that was going to be more important. I told her it could be Osama bin Laden, for God's sake. Everybody's half CIA, half FBI. They formed a circle around us just to watch and see how this was going to play out. Finally, she said, "If you open that bag, I'm going to place you under arrest and I'm going to charge you with obstruction of justice." And then the phone started ringing and I tossed it back over to her.
It's high-stakes bureaucracy playing in there, it seems to me.
I'll say.
Get in touch. Join the conversation. Find us online at clearsignal.com.au.